everything. What would happen if, for the first time in your life, you made yourself the priority? Not the expectations, not the noise, not the opinions. You. Because the truth is simple. Everything. The moment you decide to focus on your own growth with relentless consistency, your life begins to change, your confidence strengthens, your discipline sharpens. Everything, your dreams stop feeling distant and start feeling possible. This audiobook is your reminder, your roadmap, and your fuel. A journey inward, where the battle is uvious. Everything. You, and this time you win. When you finally choose yourself, something shifts inside you, quietly at first, then undeniably. It's not loud, it's not dramatic. Everything. It's not a fireworks moment. It's a whisper that becomes a conviction. A subtle but powerful realization that your life has always been waiting for you to step into it fully. Everything. And for many people, this realization comes only after years of chasing approval, trying to be enough for others, shaping themselves to fit expectations that were never truly their own. Everything. Maybe you've felt that before. Maybe you've woken up on certain days with the heaviness of trying to live up to someone else's version of you. Everything. The parent who wanted you to be more successful. The friend who expected you to always be available. The coworker who needed you to carry their weight. Everything. The partner who asked for a version of love that drained you instead of strengthening you. Or maybe it wasn't a person at all. Maybe it was the invisible hand of society. Everything. Telling you how you should act, what you should want, and who you should become. There comes a moment when all of that pressure becomes too heavy, and instead of asking, everything, how can I make them proud? You start asking, what do I actually want? That moment is the beginning of self-respect. Most people misunderstand what choosing yourself really means. Everything. They think it's selfish. They think it's abandoning people. They think it's cutting everyone off and becoming cold. Everything. But choosing yourself isn't about isolation. It's about alignment. It's about making sure that the life you're building is your own. Everything. Not a college of obligations and expectations taped together by fear. Think about how early we learn to chase validation. As kids, we want our parents to be proud. In school, everything. We want teachers to approve. As teenagers, we want friends to like us. As adults, we want society to accept us. We're taught, consciously or not, that our worth comes from outside, grades, everything. Compliments, achievements, likes, invitations, applause. And without realizing it, we build our identity on those external signals. Everything. But here's the truth that many people discover far too late: external validation is temporary. Internal validation is transformative. Everything. You can spend your whole life trying to be what others want and still never feel enough. Because the moment you rely on someone else's approval to feel worthy, everything, you've put your self-esteem in someone else's pocket, and they can lose it, drop it, ignore it, or throw it away at any moment. Choosing yourself is taking it back. Everything. There was once a young man who constantly tried to make everyone around him proud. He worked long hours because he wanted to impress his boss. Everything. He said yes to every favor because he wanted to be seen as reliable. He changed his personality depending on who he was with, hoping people would like him more. Everything. He smiled when he was exhausted, apologized when he did nothing wrong, and swallowed his own dreams because someone told him they weren't realistic. One day on his drive home, everything, he parked his car in an empty lot and just sat there. No music, no phone, no distractions. Just silence. And in that silence, he realized that he had no idea who he really was. Everything. Every version of himself had been shaped by someone else's needs. It was the first time he admitted to himself that he didn't like the life he was living. Everything. And in that quiet moment, sitting alone in his car, he made a decision that changed everything. He was done living for other people. He was going to choose himself. Everything. That decision didn't magically fix his life overnight. It wasn't easy. He had to disappoint some people. He had to enforce boundaries he never had before. Everything. He had to say no when he was used to saying yes. He had to let go of relationships that depended on his weakness. Everything. And he had to face the uncomfortable truth that not everyone claps when you choose yourself. Some people only love the version of you that serves them. Everything. But the beauty is, choosing yourself reveals who truly cares for you and who only cares for what you give them. Everything. Self-respect begins the moment you stop betraying yourself to keep others comfortable. It begins when you listen to your own needs, desires, and values. Everything. It begins when you stop handing out discounts on your boundaries. You start to walk differently when you choose yourself. You start to think differently. Everything. You start to see yourself not as someone who's trying to measure up, but as someone who is building up everything. And that shift, subtle but powerful, becomes the foundation of every goal you'll ever chase. Because when you choose yourself, you build trust with yourself, everything. And trust is the root of confidence. Confidence isn't something you magically develop. It's something you earn by keeping your own promises, everything. When you wake up early because you said you would, your self-respect grows. When you say no to something that drains you, your self-respect grows, everything. When you pursue a dream that aligns with your heart, even if no one understands it, your self-respect grows, everything. Every small act of choosing yourself becomes a brick in the foundation of a stronger, more grounded life. Think about the most successful people you know, not in terms of money, everything, but in terms of fulfillment, purpose, peace. They're not the ones who tried to please everyone. They're not the ones who chased every opinion, everything. They're the ones who lived by their own compass. They made choices that felt right to them, even when others doubted them. They believed in their direction, even when the path was unclear, everything. Choosing yourself is an act of courage because it means acknowledging that your life is your responsibility, not your parents', not society's, yours, everything. And with that responsibility comes an incredible freedom, the freedom to build a life that feels good on the inside, not just one that looks good on the outside, everything. Imagine waking up one morning and feeling grounded, not because everything is perfect, but because you finally feel aligned with who you are becoming, everything. Imagine walking through your day without the constant weight of comparison. Imagine making decisions based on your values, not based on fear or guilt, everything. That's what happens when you choose yourself. And yes, there will be people who don't understand your journey. They'll question why you've changed, everything. They'll wonder why you're not available the way you used to be. They'll call you distant, selfish, ungrateful. But understand this, everything. People who benefit from you ignoring your own needs will always label your self-respect as selfishness. Don't let their discomfort shrink your growth. When you choose yourself, everything. You teach others how to treat you. You teach them the level of respect you expect. You teach them that your time has value, that your energy is precious, and that your boundaries matter, everything. And the people who truly care for you will adapt, not resist. Because genuine relationships grow stronger when both people have a strong sense of self, everything. Choosing yourself also means believing that you are worthy of good things. Many people chase validation because they don't feel worthy on their own, everything. They look for others to confirm what they struggle to believe internally. But worthiness is not something you earn. It's something you recognize. And the more you choose yourself, everything, the easier it becomes to see your own value without needing someone else to point it out. You begin to realize that you deserve rest. You deserve opportunities. You deserve happiness, everything. You deserve to walk away from what harms you. You deserve to create a future that excites you. One day, everything. You'll look back and realize that choosing yourself was the moment your real life began. The moment your voice got louder than the noise around you, everything. The moment your dreams finally had space to breathe. The moment you stopped shrinking to fit places you had outgrown, everything. You'll look back and see that everything you wanted began the moment you understood you were worthy of wanting it, everything. And everything that held you back started to lose its grip the moment you stopped seeking permission to live your own life. When you choose yourself, everything, you step into your own power, not the borrowed power that comes from others' approval, but the real, grounded power that comes from within. The power that doesn't fade, everything, doesn't crumble, and doesn't depend on anyone else showing up for you. Because now, discipline is the quiet force that separates the life you want from the life you settle for, everything. It is the invisible bridge between who you are right now and who you have the potential to become. And for most people, discipline isn't lost because they're weak, unmotivated, everything, or incapable. It's lost because they were never taught what it really looks like. They were taught to chase motivation, to wait for the perfect moment, to hope that inspiration strikes, everything. But real transformation doesn't come from waiting. It comes from showing up. It comes from doing the work long after the excitement has faded, everything. Think about the people you admire, the ones who seem focused, calm, and consistently moving forward. They're not superhuman, everything. They don't wake up every day overflowing with unstoppable energy. Most days, they feel exactly what you feel: resistance, doubt, fatigue, the temptation to delay. The difference is simple, everything. They don't negotiate with their excuses. They commit to their routines like their future depends on it. Because it does. Everything. There's a moment in every person's life when discipline becomes a choice. Sometimes that moment is dramatic, a failure, a heartbreak, a financial collapse, everything a wake-up call that shakes the entire foundation of their life. Other times it's subtle, a quiet dissatisfaction that slowly grows until it becomes impossible to ignore. Everything, maybe you felt it too. That sense that you could be more, do more, live more. That whisper that says, everything. I'm not giving life everything I've got. Discipline is how you answer that whisper. Discipline is how you prove to yourself that you're ready for the next chapter of your life. Everything. When you begin a disciplined routine, something remarkable happens. You stop seeing yourself as the person who tries and fails, everything, and you begin to see yourself as someone capable of consistency. Every small action becomes evidence. You wake up early once, that's effort, everything. You wake up early for a week, that's progress. You wake up early for a month, that's identity. And identity is the real victory. Because once discipline becomes part of who you are, everything, you no longer rely on motivation to push you. Your habits carry you. Imagine someone deciding to change their life by starting with something as small as a daily walk. On the first day, everything, energized, optimistic, hopeful. On the 5th day, the excitement begins to fade. On the 10th day, their mind starts negotiating. Everything, maybe just skip today. You had a long day. It doesn't matter if you miss once. That is the moment discipline is born. Not on day one, everything, but on the days when nothing inside you wants to continue. When this person chooses to walk anyway, despite the feeling, despite the resistance, they unlock a new level of self-trust. Everything. They begin to see that they can rely on themselves, even on their worst days. Slowly, that simple walk becomes a symbol of strength. And eventually, everything. It becomes part of their identity. I'm someone who takes care of my body. I'm someone who follows through. I'm someone who shows up. This is how momentum begins. Not through massive change, everything, but through consistent steps repeated until you can't imagine your life without them. Discipline is momentum in motion. The more you practice it, the stronger it becomes, everything. And the stronger it becomes, the more control you feel in your daily life. The truth is, every disciplined routine comes with resistance, everything. There will always be mornings when the bed feels heavy. There will always be days when your emotions tell you to give up. But here's the secret most people never realize. Everything. You don't need to feel disciplined to act disciplined. You don't need to feel ready to take the next step. Action creates readiness. Action builds confidence. Action shapes identity. Everything. Think of discipline like a muscle. If you've never used it, of course it feels uncomfortable. Of course it feels heavy. The first time you set a routine, your mind pushes back. Everything, because the mind loves comfort. It loves what is familiar. Even if the familiar is keeping you stuck, your mind will cling to it. Everything. That's why disciplined people aren't those who fight for comfort. They are the ones who fight for their future. Everything. A man once shared his story of how he rebuilt his life after losing his job. He was devastated, embarrassed, and convinced that he had reached the lowest point of his life. Everything. But instead of letting the loss define him, he made one disciplined decision. Every morning at 6 a.m., he would sit at his kitchen table and apply for jobs for exactly 3 hours. Everything, whether he felt hopeful or hopeless, whether he received rejection emails or silence, he showed up. Day after day, he kept his routine. On the outside, nothing seemed to change at first. Everything. But on the inside, everything was changing. He was building resilience. He was rebuilding confidence. He was proving to himself that he was not powerless. Everything. And that discipline didn't just help him get a new job. It reshaped the way he saw himself. He became stronger, more focused, and far more persistent than before. Everything. Your identity changes through the evidence you create in your daily routines. If you tell yourself, I don't have discipline, and you repeat undisciplined habits, everything, your identity leans into that belief. But the moment you create even one disciplined action, a workout, a journaling session, a study routine, everything a business task, you begin to rewrite that identity. The key is repetition, not perfection, not intensity, repetition. The more you repeat disciplined behaviors, everything, the more natural they become. There will come a day when what once felt difficult becomes automatic, everything. A day when the routine you struggled to start becomes the routine you can't imagine living without. And when you reach that point, you feel something powerful. Control. Everything. Not control over the world, not control over circumstances, but control over yourself. And that is the kind of control that changes everything. Everything. Discipline isn't only about doing hard things, it's about doing the right things. It's about aligning your daily behavior with the person you want to become. Everything. Anyone can dream of success, but disciplined people build it. Anyone can wish for change, but disciplined people create it. They don't wait for circumstances to shift. Everything. They don't wait for other people to validate them. They build routines that carry them forward regardless of the noise around them. Everything. There's a misconception that discipline restricts your freedom. In reality, it creates freedom. When you are disciplined, you don't live at the mercy of your impulses. Everything. You don't fall into chaotic habits that rob you of progress. Instead, you build structure, not to trap yourself, but to protect your growth. Structure gives you peace. Everything. Routine gives you clarity. Consistency gives you progress. Think of a person who constantly feels overwhelmed, someone whose days are scattered, whose thoughts are chaotic, everything, whose goals feel blurry. For this person, life feels heavy because there's no anchor. Discipline becomes that anchor. A simple morning routine, a set time for learning, everything. A commitment to daily movement, or even a dedicated hour to personal growth. These small anchors create mental clarity. They create predictability in a world full of unpredictability. Everything. And when the mind experiences predictability, it becomes calmer, sharper, more focused. Over time, discipline begins to touch every part of your life. Everything. Your work improves because consistency sharpens your skills. Your relationships improve because you become more reliable and present. Everything. Your health improves because small habits compound into strength. Your confidence improves because you're proving to yourself that you can follow through. Everything. You begin to trust yourself in a way you never have before. And when you trust yourself, your entire life becomes different. Everything. One of the most rewarding parts of discipline is the moment you look back and see how far you've come. Not because of one dramatic leap. Everything. But because of 1,000 small steps executed with intention. You start to recognize the version of you who used to procrastinate, who used to feel overwhelmed, everything, who used to operate without structure, and you realize that person is fading. You are becoming someone new. There will be days when discipline feels effortless and empowering, everything, and there will be days when it feels like a battle. But both days count, both days build you, both days matter. Discipline is not about being perfect. It's about becoming consistent, everything. It's about being better today than you were yesterday, even if better is just one small decision. So as you move through your own journey, remember this, everything. Every disciplined action you take is a vote for the person you want to become. Every routine you choose is a step on the bridge between your reality and your potential. And with every step, everything, you build momentum. The kind of momentum that transforms your identity, strengthens your mindset, and puts you back in control of your destiny. That is the power of discipline, everything. And once you embrace it, there is no version of your future you cannot reach. When you finally become aware of how loud the world truly is, everything, you start to understand why so many people feel lost, overwhelmed, and unfocused. It's not because they're incapable. It's not because they lack ambition or potential. Everything. It's because they're drowning in a level of noise that no human mind was ever meant to handle. The endless scrolling, the constant notifications, the opinions of strangers, everything. The pressure to keep up, the chaos of comparing your life to someone else's highlight reel. All of it creates a fog that blinds you from the one thing that truly matters, everything, your own mission. Silencing the noise isn't just about peace, it's about power, everything. It's about reclaiming the mental clarity that allows you to move with intention instead of reacting to everything that pulls at your attention. When your mind is scattered, everything, your life becomes scattered. But when your mind is focused, grounded, steady, sharp, everything begins to align. There's a story of a man who wanted to become a long-distance runner. Everything. He wasn't talented, fast, or naturally athletic. What he had instead was noise. Doubts, constant interruptions, people telling him he was too old, too busy, too slow. Everything. Every time he tried to train, something pulled him away. A message, a chore, a reminder, a temptation. And he wondered why he couldn't stay consistent. Everything. It wasn't until he made one small decision that everything changed. He left his phone at home during his morning runs. No music, no tracking app, no distractions, just his breathing, everything. His feet hitting the ground and the rhythm of his thoughts. In the silence, He discovered something powerful. He wasn't weak, unfocused, everything, or easily distracted. He was simply overwhelmed by noise. When he removed it, he found a level of mental strength he didn't know he had. Everything. He went on to run his first marathon within a year, not because he trained harder than others, but because he trained with clarity. Many people think noise is only external. Sounds, everything, screens, alerts, but noise can also be internal. The overthinking, the worrying, the replaying of past mistakes, the imagining of worst-case scenarios, everything. The constant questioning of whether you're enough. This internal noise can be even more destructive because it comes from within you. It feels personal, believable, familiar, everything. It disguises itself as logic when in reality it's fear wearing a mask. That's why strengthening the mind requires two battles. Everything. Reducing external noise and mastering the internal noise that follows you everywhere. We live in a world designed to hijack your attention. Companies pay billions to keep you scrolling. Everything. Clicking, reacting. Entire industries profit from your distraction. The longer your mind is pulled in 10 different directions, the less energy you have left to invest in your dreams. Everything. You're exhausted not because you're doing too much, but because you're processing too much. Your brain is constantly switching tasks, switching focus, switching emotions, everything. That mental switching drains more energy than physical work ever could. When you silence the noise, even for a moment, the shift feels dramatic. You breathe deeper. Your thoughts slow down. Everything. You begin to notice things, your own ambitions, your own desires, your own truths, that were buried under layers of distraction. Everything. You start hearing the voice inside you that has been trying to speak for years, but couldn't be heard over all the other voices in your life. The voice that knows exactly what you want, everything, what you need, and who you're meant to become. Imagine waking up one morning and, instead of reaching for your phone, you sit in silence. No notifications. Everything. No checking what other people are doing. No comparing your life before you even brush your teeth. Just you, your breath, your mind, everything. That single moment of stillness can do more for your growth than an hour of mindless scrolling ever could, because silence reconnects you to yourself. Everything. One of the greatest forms of self-respect is protecting your attention. You can tell a lot about a person's future by observing what consumes their focus. Everything. A distracted mind lives a distracted life. A focused mind creates a focused life, one full of purpose, direction, and meaning. You might think you need motivation, everything, but often what you really need is clarity, and clarity only comes when the noise fades. Think about the last time you felt overwhelmed. Everything. Was it truly because your responsibilities were too heavy? Or was it because you were carrying unnecessary mental chaos on top of them? Everything. How many times have you tried to start something, a project, a workout, a goal, but found yourself stuck? Not because the task was too difficult, everything, but because your mind was too cluttered to even begin. Noise steals your start. Noise steals your momentum. Noise steals your ability to hear your own intuition. Everything. Strengthening the mind begins with small intentional steps. It starts with choosing silence in moments where noise has become your default. Everything. Instead of filling every empty space with entertainment, you allow yourself to feel, think, reflect. Instead of immediately reacting, you pause and respond. Everything. Instead of letting random inputs shape your mood, you choose what and who gets access to your attention. You don't need to disappear from the world. Everything. You just need to build boundaries that protect your peace. You might turn off notifications. You might set specific times to check messages. You might take a short walk without your phone. Everything. You might go to the gym and actually train, not scroll in between sets. These small changes are powerful because they retrain your mind to be present, to be disciplined, to be in control. Everything. There's a reason some of the most successful people in the world practice quiet routines, early morning solitude, journaling, meditation, unplugged walks. Everything. It's not because silence is trendy. It's because silence sharpens the mind. Silence creates room for strategy, creativity, intuition, and deep thinking. Everything. And deep thinking is rare today, which is exactly why it's so valuable. You might find that when the noise fades, things you weren't seeing before suddenly become obvious. Everything. You'll notice patterns in your life, the habits that drain you, the relationships that distract you, the opportunities you've been overlooking. Everything. You'll reconnect with goals you once cared about but abandoned because life got too loud. You'll rediscover a version of yourself you thought you lost. Everything. Simply because you finally created space to hear them again. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of clarity. It is the presence of intention. Everything. It is the presence of your true self, unburdened by the expectations and demands of the world around you. Everything. Strengthening the mind requires that you learn to sit with yourself without distraction. At first, it may feel uncomfortable. You might become restless. Your thoughts might race. Everything. You might want to reach for your phone, your TV, your music, anything to fill the silence. But if you can push through that initial discomfort, something shifts. Everything. Your mind begins to settle. Your breathing slows. Your thoughts unclench. You enter a deeper level of mental presence, one where solutions appear to problems that once felt impossible. Everything. You might realize that many of your worries were amplified by noise. You might see that the fear of judgment was louder than the reality. Everything. You might understand that your doubts were fueled by comparing your journey to others. Noise distorts your perception of yourself. Silence restores it. As your mind strengthens, everything, you begin to trust yourself more. Your decisions become clearer. Your emotions feel more balanced. Your reactions become more thoughtful. Everything. You stop chasing the chaos and start choosing the calm. You move with intention, knowing that your attention is one of your greatest assets, and you refuse to waste it. Everything. When you reach this level of inner clarity, you become unshakable. The world can be loud, but it no longer controls you. Distractions can appear, everything, but they cannot pull you away from your path. Doubts can whisper, but they cannot override your truth. You become the kind of person who is centered, grounded, everything, and aligned. Someone who doesn't need external validation because their direction comes from within. Silencing the noise doesn't mean escaping life, everything. It means elevating yourself above the distractions that once held you back. It means stepping into a higher level of focus, awareness, and self-mastery. Everything. It means living each day with a mind that is clear enough to see your path and strong enough to walk it. And when your mind becomes this steady, this sharp, everything changes. Everything. Not because the world becomes easier, but because you become stronger, calmer, and more connected to the mission that is uniquely yours. Everything. Every extraordinary life is built on ordinary actions repeated with quiet consistency. Not the dramatic moments, not the big decisions, everything. Not the overnight breakthroughs the world loves to talk about, but the small choices you make when no one is watching. The habits you practice when the applause fades and the motivation dips. Everything. The tiny, almost invisible behaviors that shape the person you are becoming. Most people underestimate them because they seem too simple to matter. Everything. But the truth is that your future isn't created in the moments of inspiration. It's built in the moments of repetition. Think about this. Everything. Every habit you repeat is like a vote you cast for the kind of person you want to become. When you show up even when you're tired, you cast a vote for discipline. When you read, learn, everything, and improve yourself, you cast a vote for growth. When you choose patience instead of frustration, effort instead of excuses, or progress instead of perfection, everything, you're slowly becoming someone stronger than you were yesterday. You may not see the full transformation yet, but something inside you is shifting. The engine is turning. Everything. Your identity is evolving. Habits don't just shape your schedule, they shape you. And that's why this chapter matters. Everything. Because the moment you understand that habits are not chores but opportunities, you start treating your daily actions differently. Everything becomes meaningful. Everything. Even the smallest step becomes a brick in the foundation of your future. Imagine a person who wants to become healthier. They start with a simple habit. 10 minutes of walking a day. Everything. That's it. Just 10 minutes. Not an hour in the gym, not a strict diet plan, not a life overhaul. Just a small soul sustainable step. A week passes, the habit grows easier. After 2 weeks, everything, the walk becomes 20 minutes. A month later, they're doing exercises they never imagined themselves doing. Their energy shifts. Their mindset shifts. The habit, everything, once tiny and almost laughably simple, has grown into a lifestyle. That's the power of small actions. They compound. They build momentum. Everything. They create a version of you that is capable of so much more than you originally believed. You might feel like your life needs a massive transformation. But in reality, everything, you need something much simpler, a few core habits done with consistency, not perfection. Consistency, there's a big difference. Perfection is fragile. It breaks the moment you slip. Everything. Consistency is human. It allows room for rest, mistakes, and growth. Consistency understands that missing a day is normal, but giving up entirely is optional. Everything. Think back to a time in your life when you built a habit without even realizing it. Maybe it was checking your phone in the morning. Maybe it was drinking water when you felt thirsty. Everything. Maybe it was brushing your teeth before bed. None of these habits required willpower after a certain point. They became automatic. What if your success habits could become automatic too? Everything. What if self-discipline could feel natural? What if learning, growing, creating, and improving became part of your identity instead of part of your to-do list? Everything. That is the transformation habits offer you. But to build habits that truly shape your future, you need to understand one powerful truth: the habit is not the goal. The identity behind it is. Everything. When you build habits, you're not just changing what you do. You're changing who you believe yourself to be. Start seeing yourself as the kind of person who shows up. Everything. As the kind of person who doesn't quit. As the kind of person who builds their future on purpose. Consider the story of a young man who wanted to become a writer. He wasn't confident. Everything. He doubted himself constantly. Every time he tried to write something meaningful, he would delete it in frustration. So he made one rule: write one sentence a day. Just one, not a paragraph. Everything, not a page, not a chapter, a single sentence. It seemed almost too small to matter. But he stuck with it. A month passed, 30 sentences, then 2 months, then 6 months. Everything. That one sentence habit quietly grew into full paragraphs, and those paragraphs became chapters. 2 years later, he finished his first book, and he didn't succeed because of talent. Everything. He succeeded because of consistency. One sentence at a time, he built a future he once thought was impossible. Your habits don't have to be impressive. They just have to be consistent. Everything. When you repeat a habit long enough, it stops feeling like a task and starts feeling like part of your identity. And when your habits align with your identity, change becomes effortless. Everything. You no longer force yourself to improve. You naturally improve because it's who you are now. But building habits is not always glamorous. It requires patience. Everything. It requires self-awareness. It requires choosing long-term reward over short-term comfort. Imagine planting a seed. You water it, you care for it. Everything. You nurture it even though nothing visible happens in the beginning. Days pass with no growth. Weeks pass with no sign of progress. But you keep watering it. Why? Everything. Because you trust the process. You know something is happening beneath the surface, even if you can't see it yet. And then one day, a small green sprout breaks through the soil. Everything. That moment, that tiny sign of growth, makes every day of patience worth it. Your habits are the same. You may feel like your efforts are invisible right now. Everything. You may feel like the progress is too slow, like your actions aren't making a difference. But beneath the surface, a quiet transformation is happening. Your mind is learning. Everything. Your discipline is strengthening. Your identity is shifting. And one day, just like that sprout, your results begin to show. People will wonder how you changed so suddenly. But you'll know. Everything. You'll know it wasn't sudden at all. It was built one small habit at a time. If you want to build habits that build your future, everything, start by choosing habits that align with the life you want to live. If you want to be healthier, start with movement. If you want to be smarter, start with reading. Everything. If you want to be disciplined, start with routines. If you want success, start with consistency and be gentle with yourself. You are not supposed to master everything at once. Everything. You are not supposed to transform overnight. You are supposed to show up. Even if it's imperfect, even if it's messy, even if it's slow. Everything. Consistency is a conversation between you and your potential. It's the quiet promise you make to yourself every day. I am becoming someone better. Everything. One of the most important keys to building habits is reducing friction. Make the habit easy to start. Make it so simple you can't talk yourself out of it. Want to read more? Everything. Start with 2 pages. Want to exercise? Start with 5 minutes. Want to meditate? Start with 1 deep breath the moment you wake up. Make it small. Make it simple. Make it doable. Everything. People don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they make the habit too heavy to carry. Another powerful tactic is to attach your habit to something you already do. Everything. For example, every morning when you brush your teeth, right afterward, you drink a glass of water. Or every time you sit at your desk, you write your goals for the day. Everything. Or every evening before bed, you read for 10 minutes. When you connect a new habit to an existing one, you anchor it into your routine. It becomes seamless, effortless. Everything. But at the core of every habit-building journey is one truth: you must trust yourself. You must trust that small steps matter. You must trust that consistency can rewrite your life. Everything. You must trust that you are capable of far more than you currently believe. And every time you repeat a habit, you give yourself evidence. Evidence that you can change everything. Evidence that you are changing. Evidence that your future is being built in real time. Let yourself feel hopeful about the person you're becoming. Let yourself feel proud of the small wins. Everything. Celebrate them. Every time you show up, every time you choose growth, every time you follow through on your commitment, you're proving something powerful. Everything. You are not the same person you used to be. You are evolving, and no matter how small the progress looks, it is progress. You are moving forward. You are shaping your future intentionally. Everything. Step by step, action by action, habit by habit. Keep going. You are building something beautiful, and it's growing within you, one consistent choice at a time. Everything. When you think about becoming unstoppable, most people imagine a person who never feels doubt, never struggles, never hesitates. But that's not what unstoppable truly means. Everything. Being unstoppable is not about perfection, it's about identity. It's about who you decide to become when everything in your life tests your strength. Everything. It's about the moment you stop looking at the world for permission and begin trusting the voice inside you. The voice that says you were made for more, even when no one else can hear it. Everything. And so much of this journey begins within your own mind. Your mindset is the command center of your life. It determines how you interpret challenges, how you respond to setbacks. Everything. And how you rise when life tries to push you down. Every victory you'll ever experience begins in your thoughts long before it shows up in your reality. Everything. And the opposite is true as well. Every limitation, every fear, every belief that tells you you can't is also rooted in your thoughts. Everything. There comes a point where you have to decide which voice you're going to listen to. The voice of fear or the voice of possibility. The voice of old habits, everything. Or the voice of the person you're becoming. Becoming unstoppable starts in the moments nobody sees, in the doubts you wrestle with, in the tired days when you want to quit. Everything. In the private battles between who you were and who you're trying to be. Think about every person you've ever admired, athletes, leaders, creators, innovators, everything. None of them arrived at their success because life was easy. They arrived because they developed an inner toughness. Everything. A mental strength that allowed them to keep moving even when circumstances tried to break them. They learned that winning isn't an event. Everything. It's not something that happens at the finish line. Winning is a decision, made repeatedly, long before the world sees the result. And if you look closely, you'll notice something else. Everything. People who become unstoppable trust their journey, even when the road doesn't make sense. They understand that progress is not linear. Some days you leap forward. Everything. Some days you take a step back. Some seasons feel effortless. Others feel like you're walking through mud. Everything. But the unstoppable ones keep moving because they believe that every phase of the journey is shaping them, preparing them, strengthening them. Everything. Maybe you're in a place in your life right now where you feel uncertain. Maybe you're trying to figure out your direction, your purpose, or what's next. Everything. Maybe you've been giving your all, yet nothing seems to move the way you hoped. It's easy to think something's wrong with you in those moments. But I want you to consider this. Everything. What if nothing is wrong? What if you're not stuck? You're being shaped. What if this slow, frustrating, everything, uncertain season is the exact process required to develop the strength you'll need for the future you're building? Growth isn't always visible. Everything. Sometimes the biggest changes happen underground where no one can see. Think of a seed. Before it becomes a tree, it must break open. It must root itself deep into the soil first. Everything. That part of the process isn't glamorous. It's slow, unseen, and quiet. But without it, the seed never becomes anything more. Everything. A lot of people quit during their underground season because they assume their lack of visible progress means they're failing. Everything. But the unstoppable ones understand that the invisible stage is where their real foundation is built. And this foundation is mindset. Everything. It's learning how to speak to yourself when doubt enters your mind. It's learning how to stay committed when motivation fades. Everything. It's remembering why you started when the journey gets difficult. It's choosing not to break when life applies pressure, but to let that pressure turn you into something stronger. Everything. You can't become unstoppable if you treat every challenge as a sign that you should quit. Challenges aren't stop signs. They are training. They build emotional muscle. Everything. They teach resilience. They force you to grow in ways comfort never will. Every time you overcome something that used to break you, you rise to a new level of personal power. Everything. You start to realize that you're capable of more than you ever believed. And from that moment on, something shifts within you. You stop doubting your strength. Everything. You stop underestimating your potential. You stop negotiating with your excuses. Everything. One of the greatest turning points in a person's life is the moment they decide that quitting is no longer an option. That doesn't mean they never feel tired or discouraged. Everything. It means they stopped making decisions based on their feelings and started making decisions based on their commitment. When quitting is removed from the table, progress becomes inevitable. Everything. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to keep moving forward. Imagine for a moment a person training for a marathon. On day one, they can barely run a mile without stopping. Everything. They're out of breath, their legs burn, and the temptation to quit is strong. But if they come back the next day, and the next, and the next, something incredible happens. Everything. They don't just become physically stronger. They become mentally unrecognizable. They start trusting themselves. They start believing, if I can push through this mile, everything, I can push through the next. That belief is what carries them to the finish line. Not talent, not luck, not perfect conditions. Belief, strengthened by consistency. Everything. Becoming unstoppable in your own life follows the same pattern. You don't wake up one morning with unshakable confidence. You build it. Everything. You build it through the tiny victories. Waking up early even when you don't feel like it. Showing up for your goals even when nobody's clapping for you. Everything. Choosing discipline over comfort. Choosing growth over excuses. Every small win is a vote for the person you're becoming. And eventually, those votes add up. Everything. You start to see yourself differently. You start trusting your ability to figure things out. Everything. You start realizing that setbacks aren't the end of your story. They're just plot twists that make the final victory more meaningful. Everything. One of the most overlooked truths about success is that it has very little to do with speed. Some people reach their goals quickly, others take much longer. Everything. But both arrive if they refuse to quit. What matters isn't how fast you get there. It's that you keep going. Success rewards the persistent, not the perfect. And along the journey, everything. You will face moments that challenge your patience, your confidence, and your trust in the process. But every breakthrough you're hoping for is on the other side of those moments. Everything. The people who give up never get to see how close they were. The ones who hold on, who try again. Everything. Who let their failures become lessons instead of limits. They become unstoppable not because life was easy, but because they kept rising no matter what life threw at them. Everything. You have the same ability within you. You have the strength to overcome the setbacks you've been through. You have the resilience to rise above the disappointments. Everything. You have the courage to face your fears, and you have the power to write a story that looks nothing like your past. The truth is, you don't have to feel unstoppable to become unstoppable. Everything. You just have to keep going. You have to trust that the discomfort you feel today is building the strength you'll need tomorrow. Everything. You have to believe that your effort matters even when the results are slow. You have to hold on to the possibility that your greatest victories are being shaped in this very moment. Everything. Even if you can't see them yet. And the day will come, sooner than you think, when you look back on this version of yourself with gratitude. Everything. Because you'll realize that this was the season that changed everything. This was the moment you decided to rise. Everything. This was the point in your journey where you stopped letting life happen to you and started creating your own path. This was when you became unstoppable from the inside out.